Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be doing a DIY project. We'll be making this personalized bag. This is a great makeup bag. You can also put pencils or pretty much any type of knickknacks in there. It makes a great Christmas gift since Christmas is around the corner. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, but without further ado, let's get started. First material I have is this Martha Stewart stencil set. This is the fancy script stencil set. I'm just using this so that way it's not messy or anything, but you are more than welcome to freehand this part if you like. To use the stencil with, I am using these stenciling brushes. I got this set from, I want to say Walmart, and it was super affordable. I just like that it has a lot of different sizes, so it makes the whole project a little bit easier for bigger parts that I'm painting. For the paint, I'm using the Martha Stewart's multi-surface satin paint. This one specifically does work with fabric as well, so make sure your paint works with fabric. To stencil with, I'm also using a 3M tape. For the studs, I'm using these super cute cat earrings. I love cats, as you guys know already, so I decided to actually make the studs out of earrings since they had a bunch of kitties on there. I got these from Michael's. They were buy one get one half off, so they were pretty affordable. A canvas bag, I got this from Michael's for just a couple bucks. You can use any type of canvas bag or any type of fabric bag you like. I'm just using this one. For the tassels, I actually ended up using gray tassels instead. However, you can use any tassel you want, so you do need some yarn. And then just for some basic tools, you'll need a ruler, pencil, a E6000 glue, a marker. You can also use a Sharpie if you like, long nose pliers, and also a plate or a palette to hold the paint. To get started, I'm going to stencil the name in on this bag first. Best thing to think about is where you want the letter to be. I want it to be on the lower right hand corner, and so all I have to really measure up is how high I want the letter up from the base. I decided that I want it to be 0.75 inches from the bottom, so I'm going to be marking 3 dots 0.75 inches from the base on 3 sides of the bag, so 1 in the middle and then 2 on each corner. Now to create a visual guide to make sure the stencils are placed straight for the lettering to be straight on the bag, I'm using a piece of tape and some marker to mark off the edge. Don't worry about my table, guys. I actually use tiles for a tabletop on top of my desk to make sure I don't mess up the table, and if I do mess up the tile, I can literally just trash that tile. It's only a couple bucks, and then just buy a new tile. So that is also a great hack for DIYers if you want like a nice tabletop that you won't have to worry about messing up. But after I do that, I'm going to wait for it to dry for a little bit and then check and make sure that no color transferring is coming off of it before placing it on the bag. Now that that's done, I'm placing this tape right against those 3 dots to create a nice visual line for the stenciling to begin. Next, to start stenciling, I'm taking out all of the letters that I need for my name, and this stencil set, it is a cursive stencil set, so everything does stick together, which makes a very nice completed word. If you have one that's not, then you won't have to space it the way that I'm going to space it. Now to start stenciling and placing the letters onto the bag, I'm starting from the last letter up to the first letter just because I'm placing the word on the lower right hand side. If it's on the other side, you would start with the first letter. If you place it in the middle of the bag, you want to start from the middle letter in the name or word. So to start here, I'm doing the S first. As you can see, when you move lower and upper, you can see where that purple line pops in. So that's where the guide is going to help. You want to place it so that way you see a little bit of the purple line, and you want to move it up at about maybe 1 millimeter up or so. You really want to gauge that you're moving up around the same for all of the letters, so you still don't end up with like a crooked word. Really, if you place it like a little bit off, you won't really be able to tell since it is cursive, and 1 little millimeter off is really not going to make a ginormous difference in your bag. So once that is placed, I'm taking my palette and I'm taking some of my paint here. The brush I'm using is the stenciling brush. I'm using a smaller medium-sized brush. That way it's really just covering where the letter is. To start stenciling, you're going to pick up some paint and you're going to push down onto the palette to kind of take off some of the extra paint. And when you're using the stencil, you're going straight down and up. So we're not going sideways from sideways, we're only going up and down. That's going to prevent the paint from spewing under the stencil, and that way you can get a nice clean stencil. For the S, I'm not going to do the whole thing since I don't have a letter after, so I'm stopping right there. And once I'm done, I'm going to take a smaller brush to just brush the edge and clean off the lines. The brush I'm using for this is a tiny nail art brush. You can also use a toothpick for this, pretty much anything that's small. I'm going to dab this up and down, same type of motion as the other brush. This prevents it from creating any lines to make it even. I'm going to do this for both of the edge and then also to fill in any gaps that was left over from the stencil. All of the gaps, once you complete it, it creates the full letter. Now to move on to the next letter, I have the I here. So you can see that this really easily overlaps if I connect it directly onto that line. So I'm actually going to have to paint a line for myself to connect it. Best way to keep the paint from the existing letters to get under the stencil is to actually use a piece of paper towel or a piece of paper. I'm using a piece of bounty paper here and I'm placing it all the way until I just see a little bit of the letter sticking out for me to place it in the right order so I don't get too far away from the letter. Just keep in mind for the letters, since we're trying to connect all of them, some of them are going to end up not being as straight as you think they're going to be based off of the square card. So you might have to angle it a little bit differently. For me, I placed this pretty far away from the S just because if I stuck it too close, it would actually touch the S. But it does take a little bit of time to gauge where you want the letter to go. And then same thing, just like the other one, you want to just move it up and down to make sure that the purple line is only about 1 millimeter away from where you're starting the stencil. Once that's placed correctly, I'm doing the same stamping motion for the paint, so up and down to cover the letter. I'm not bringing this one all the way to the end, that way I can connect it with my little paintbrush. Keep in mind that with the little paintbrush, you don't have to just use it for connecting the letters, so if you want to refine any of the lines, you can, just to make everything go smoother together. Now I'm going to do this for the rest of the letters. Now to finish it off with the first letter, I just wanted to give you guys a little tip here. So for example, for my capitalized letter, I wouldn't stick this onto the rest of the name just because it's not made to be stuck on there. If it does stick on there, I just think it looks kind of weird. So a tip is you can actually take a pencil, mark how far you want the letter to be, and that way you can just place the stencil on and look for that dot, so that way you get the stencil exactly where you want it to be. Since it's covered, you can't see where the rest of the letters are, so that dot will actually act as a guide for you. Once that is dried, I'm moving on to the back of the bag. I'm painting horizontal stripes across the bag. They're going to be 1-inch wide stripes. First thing I figured out is just how much space I want before I start the first stripe. I decided to do about 1/2 inch for each one. So from 1/2 inch, I'm marking every inch. After that, and I'm doing this on each side of the bag. So one on the left, one on the right, and then one in the middle. Starting from the middle one, that way it's the easiest, I'm just marking that first 1/2 inch, and then moving forward, I'm doing each inch going down. And again, I'm just using these as markers, so make sure you're not doing any marking that is too big. I'm doing 3 of them just to guide me when I place the line to create the stripes with the tape. To create the guides for the paint, I'm just placing each tape against the 3 dots. Pretty much anywhere that you are taping is where the paint will not be. So make sure that you are skipping the places that you want the paint to be and placing the tape where you don't want it to be. Another part you need to put the tape on is also on the edge of the bag. You see there's a seam on the side. So the best ways to place this is just placing it, sticking the edge of the tape in the middle first, pushing it down, and then taping over onto the side that you won't be painting. This will just create the cleanest line you can get on the edge of the bag. To start painting, I'm using a much larger brush and I'm stamping downwards just like the stencil. This time you don't have to hold down any stencil, so you can pretty much free-handedly stamp. Just make sure you're not going over the lines of the tape that has the gaps where you don't want the paint to be. If you see any leftover spots, you don't have to worry about them. You can always go back after. You just need to make sure the edge where it meets the tape is the cleanest. Once that is all done, I'm taking off all of the tape. That would reveal all the straight edges. For me, I'm not really going to go back in and paint anymore. I kind of like that it's a not completely covered type of line, so it looks a little bit more homemade. So I'm going to leave it as is. Now to move on to the fun part, we're going to add some kitty sparkles to this bag. I have these earrings that I'll be using for the studs. I'm taking all of them out and separating them into 2 piles. I have silver and I have some gold mixed with rose gold. I think I'm just going to use a rose mixed with rose gold and save the silver ones for another project in the future. To figure out where I want each stud to be, I'm placing them face down on the bag. Once I'm happy with where everything is, I'm going to mark every stud with a dot with a pencil, and I'm placing it next to me on the table in the order that it will go to. To attach these studs onto the bag, first thing I need is to take the long nose pliers to bend the earrings like so. You want to bend it down and then backwards a little bit, not too much. It should look something like this. And just to show you one more time, we're pressing it against and then we're bending it like so, and it should look something like this. To attach the bag, we don't want the backing to stick through the bag. So if you look inside the bag, there is a fabric lining. So make sure that you're pulling this apart from the outside of the bag to make sure you're not going through it when you are poking the earrings through to the bag. To put the earrings onto the bag, all you have to do is just poke it through the dot that we made with the pencil. Once you put it in, you're going to make a turn to make sure you're not going through the lining of the bag. Once you've placed all of the earrings in, it should look something like this. To secure everything, I'm using some E6000 glue. I'm putting some on a paper towel and then placing it under each earring and pressing it down to secure it. To finish off the project, I'm adding a tassel onto the zipper. I made a separate video on how to make tassels. I'll attach the link on the page and also in the description box for you guys. I have two different yarn here. I actually end up using the gray ones just because I like the gray more. However, you can use any color that you like. Here is the tassel I'll be using for this zipper. I used a business card for the sizing. For this tassel, I actually have a very long string for the attachment since I'll be wrapping it around the zipper. To get started, I'm putting both strings through the bottom hole of the zipper and pulling it all the way up. I'm leaving a little bit of space for the tassel. However long you make this is how much give it's going to have when you have the tassel dangling down. You don't want it too tight where you won't be able to pull on the tassel. To start wrapping it, I am pulling it under and then overlapping and over. I'll be doing this a couple times until I'm happy with how thick the rope would be on the bottom. Once that is done, it should look something like this. On each side, I'm taking the string and wrapping it into the circle to wrap around it like a loop. While you're wrapping, be sure to wrap this tightly. You don't want this to be loose since you'll be pulling on this every time you open the bag. Continue to do this on both sides of the zipper pull. Once you're done with both sides, it should look something like this. To wrap the rest of the zipper pull, I'm doing double knots in the front and then doing a double knot in the back until I can get it all the way up to the top of the zipper pull. And again, be sure to keep the strings very tight as you're going up the zipper pull. You don't want this to be loose. Once I've reached the top, I'm going to do a double knot and just trim off the remaining excess. So that concludes today's DIY project. Hopefully you guys liked it. If you did, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. It does help me out. Let me know what type of content you guys like to see me make. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!